guys, it's Soda here, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about what the best starter pet fish I think is. Well, kind of. There's not really one answer to this, it's just something that I get asked a lot. Either what fish they should start with or what pet in general they should start with, which there's no one answer to those questions. It totally depends on the person. There's no trial pet that you can get, they're a full-time commitment. So I don't know if I really like the term starter pet, but you do start somewhere, so we're gonna use that anyway. But keep in mind, a starter animal is still a animal. It's a commitment, it's a family member. If you want to trial with an animal, then maybe find someone who has those pets instead that you can visit. Don't just buy an animal with the mindset that you'll just get rid of it if it's not for you. I feel like you should probably figure that out before you make a commitment to an animal. I do get asked a lot of people who are wanting to get into the fish keeping hobby and just don't know where to start. They want to get a fish but don't know what fish they should start with because there's so many different types. And often people will go straight to goldfish because it's pretty common knowledge. People see goldfish as a good starter animal and, a good animal that won't live long, apparently, and doesn't need much care. Well, I'll start off by saying that I definitely don't recommend goldfish as your first fish, but I will talk about why, and I will talk about what I do recommend. Now, obviously, as I always say, before you actually buy the animal, it's very important to do lots of research. On the internet, there are so many great sources you can find. You can even join some, local fish Facebook groups, even if you don't like Facebook. I know, I don't like it either, but there are some really great local groups you can join of other people who are maybe starting out in fish, or people who are experienced in fish, who, people help each other and stuff. I do still think it's worth it. I think you can learn a lot from other people. There is just unlimited resources on the internet of information you can find. So do as much research as you can before you actually get the animal. Now, I think I've made a couple of care guides. I've done a betta fish care guide. Have I done goldfish? I don't know, but I've done a few animal care guides you can check out if you want to. They're kind of old now, but the information on them still stands. I've learnt everything that I know just from the internet and from experience having these animals. So I have goldfish right now. I don't have any betta fish anymore, but I used to. I've had 3, I think. Yeah, 3. But my partner's had 2 as well. I've been around a lot of betta fish in my time, but I don't have any at the moment. But I'm really thinking of getting one soon because I haven't had one in so long. But I have a lot of experience with bettas and goldfish. I love my goldfish. If you don't know a whole lot about fish, but you're wanting to get into it, the first thing that you might think of is getting a goldfish because they are seen as being easy. You can just put them in a bowl and they'll be fine. Well, I would like to stop you there. Because I definitely wouldn't recommend goldfish as your first fish. I actually think that goldfish should be for more experienced fish keepers. I didn't start with goldfish. I started with minnows, actually, mountain minnows. That's another great option. Goldfish actually require a lot more care than you may think. They need to have really large tanks because they grow really big, and if they're kept in very small tanks, they can have a lot of health issues and end up not living nearly as long as they should. Goldfish are a very long commitment. They can live up to 20-25 years, but unfortunately due to how we keep them as pets, they don't tend to live that long in captivity. But if kept properly, they can live to a very long time and grow very big. There are many different species of goldfish, like the common goldfish you might see in fish shops, or the comet goldfish. These fish are especially not very good for new people for pets because they get even bigger than fancy goldfish, and they require a lot more space. I honestly think they usually should be kept in ponds, and goldfish are social animals, so they actually do need to be kept with more than one goldfish because they can get lonely. So you're going to be starting off with at least a 100-liter tank for 2 goldfish. So most people don't really want to start that big. Now, the reason I would recommend betta fish is because they can live happily in fairly small tanks. About 25 liters is a minimum I would recommend for a betta fish, which I think it's about 5 gallons. I wouldn't go any smaller than that, but one betta fish can live quite happily in that, but big is always better too. Doesn't hurt to go bigger than that. No bowls though, no 1-gallon tanks or jars, none of that, alright? Trust me, it's not worth it. Your fish is gonna suffer in something so small. If you think 5 gallons is too big and gonna take up too much space, then maybe just don't get a fish. Maybe just get a jar of moss or something. Now, betta fish are tropical fish. They do need to have heaters in their tank. and the temperature needs to be kept at around 25 degrees Celsius. And that might seem kind of scary at first, you know. I feel like before I knew much about tropical fish, I thought, you know, that sounds a lot harder than keeping cold water fish, but honestly, it's pretty easy. You just put a heater in there, keep an eye on the temperature, and you really should have no problems if you have a good heater. And obviously read the instruction manual of the heater, etc. And it's very important that you do have one. I mean, some people might live in a really warm area, but betta fish need the temperature to be consistently at the same temperature. You don't want it to be fluctuating. That can really stress them out. So I really would recommend having a heater anyway, even if you live in a warm area, just so it doesn't fluctuate. Now you do have to make sure that you don't have anything that could potentially damage their fins in your tank. Nothing like sharp fake plants or anything, but you can get real plants or you can get fake silk like plants, that's fine. As well as you don't want to have a filter that's too strong for them and blows them around the place. Sponge filters work great for betta fish especially. Now usually for betta fish it's better to keep them solitary. I especially recommend this if it's your first fish, just to have one betta fish with no other fish. Bettas can be very territorial and aggressive towards other fish, and especially if it's in a small tank. Now you can keep bettas with other fish, but you have to have, you know, big enough tank size so the betta can have its own territory. Some betta can be completely chill, like I've kept a betta with a bunch of fish, but that was like 150 liter tank. And then sometimes you end up with a betta who's like super aggressive and want to kill everything in their sight. Like once I had a betta fish that would attack the snails in his tank, so I didn't risk putting him with anything. So it can totally depend on your betta fish's personality, but if it's your first fish, I think you're just better off just keeping a betta fish alone for now. It's something that you could try in the future after doing some research about it. Now, if you are new to fish, then you may or may have not heard of cycling a fish tank. Now, this is a very important process you should always do before getting fish. Now, it does require a bit of research. It is a lot to learn. It can be quite confusing at first, but I promise you it will be worth it. Basically, you can't just fill up a fish tank with tap water, put your fish in, and they'll be good. That's often why fish don't live very long, is people don't cycle their fish tanks or they don't use the chlorinator, etc. Cycling a fish tank is basically the process of creating beneficial bacteria in your tank, and every fish tank needs to have this beneficial bacteria because it helps break down ammonia and other toxic bacteria, because when fish poop or if there's leftover food in your fish tank, that creates ammonia, and ammonia is very toxic to fish. But if you have beneficial bacteria in the tank, that helps break down the ammonia and make it safe. So without that, the fish could die from ammonia poisoning, and that is what happens very often, unfortunately. Now, cycling is such a big thing that in my country, New Zealand, most pet stores won't sell you fish if your fish tank isn't cycled. Now, I know it's very different in America. I think from what I've heard from you guys, that pet stores don't really care if your tank's not cycled. They don't even tell you about cycling your fish tank. In my country it's quite different. They ask you, you know, if your tank's cycled, and if it isn't, they'll help guide you through it. So that's how important it is. Now, I've had people ask me to make a whole video talking about cycling a fish tank, but honestly, I don't think I'm very good at explaining it. Like, you can cycle a fish tank in many different ways, and it's a lot to explain. I kind of like to explain it in a simple way, and I'm also not an expert at all. Like, I've just watched lots of YouTube videos about it, so I'm gonna just link down below some of the videos that I watched when I was getting started that really helped me understand it, and they might help you as well. Another great thing about betta fish is they have so much personality. I generally feel like every betta fish is different, and they can come in such a beautiful range of different colors and morphs, which is why people who are new to the hobby or, you know, experienced in the hobby all love betta fish equally. And once you do have everything set up, you know, you've tested your water, which you can test your water at like pet stores, or you can buy a master test kit, which is very helpful to have in case anything wrong is going on with your tank. So once you know your water's all good, your fish tank cycled, you got your fish, the cycling and all that, that's the hard part. Once that's done, they are very easy to care for. You know, you just got to keep up with your weekly partial water changes, and obviously always keep an eye on your fish, make sure, you know, he's not showing any signs of illness. I do find that betta fish can get illnesses quite easily. I mean, all fish can, but I have experienced some like weird illnesses with betta fish before. That's actually also why I would recommend not getting a betta fish from the pet store. I would recommend you go to like a breeder. There are lots of great fish breeders out there you can find. You can just Google around or talk to people like on Facebook groups locally, and you'll probably end up finding some local fish breeders. And I think that you're much better off getting a well-bred, healthy betta fish from a breeder instead of a pet store. Because unfortunately, American chain pet stores, don't take very good care of their betta fish, and you often will end up with a very sick betta. I really think we need to try to stop purchasing live animals from a lot of these like American chain pet stores, because there's a lot of bad stuff going on in those pet stores, unfortunately. You can also rescue a fish. I've rescued quite a few fish. You can find people selling like their fish on secondhand places, depending what you have in your country. Sometimes you might find a fish that's not been kept very well, but that's probably more for experienced people, because you might end up having to get medication for that fish and stuff, and that can be, you know, a lot more work than just getting a healthy fish already from a breeder. So that's kind of my thoughts on your first fish. So that's kind of my thoughts on what I think the best first fish is. But at the end of the day, everyone is different. Like, you don't have to start with a betta fish. It's just what I would recommend if you're unsure. Maybe you're more of a cold water fish person and you want to start with minnows or something. Minnows was actually my first fish. They're a cold water species of fish, and they are quite small, and you can keep them in fairly like smaller tanks. But they do need to be in a group. They are a schooling fish. But I absolutely loved my minnows. I really want to get some more, actually. You can also keep them with goldfish if you have a big enough tank, but the goldfish might end up eating them. That's what happened to mine. But yeah, feel free to let me know what you think, if you agree with me, or if you want to recommend anything else for any new fish keepers. Or if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and I might get back to you, or someone else might be able to help you. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!